Inflammatory excess visceral fat is one of the most dangerous things you can have in your body. It sets the stage for type 2 diabetes, many different kinds of cancer, heart disease, and even dementia. There is a substantial body of research linking excess visceral fat to all these chronic diseases, and you absolutely want to avoid accumulating too much of it. To measure visceral fat accurately, you need a scan called a DEXA scan, or dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. This scan measures the different types of tissue in your body, including bone, muscle, and fat, and tells you where that tissue is located and how much of it there is. Research has shown that of all the fat in your body, only about 10% should be visceral fat. That is the amount you actually need to survive. When you start exceeding that amount, your belly begins to bulge outward. What people commonly call a beer gut is the result of visceral fat growing inside the abdominal cavity and pushing the belly outward from the inside. If you cannot access a DEXA scan, a simple way to assess whether you are gaining visceral fat is to pay attention to your waist size and belt size. When visceral fat increases, it expands your waist circumference. If you are needing to loosen your belt or buy bigger clothes, that is a strong signal that visceral fat is growing. So the first step if you want to lose visceral fat is to stop overeating. There are 3 practical ways to approach this. The first is to take smaller portions when you plate your food. Keep about 2/3 of your plate empty, leaving a lot of white space. The second tip is to stop feeling obligated to clean your plate. That habit dates back to World War I and World War II as a way to conserve food for troops. Today, there is an overabundance of food, and finishing everything on your plate simply because it is there will lead to overeating, making it much harder to lose visceral fat. The third tip comes from an old Confucian principle called hara hachi bu, a Japanese concept that means stopping eating when you are 80% full. The way to achieve this is by eating slowly. When your stomach approaches that 80% mark, it releases a hormone called leptin, which travels to your brain and signals that you are getting full. Eating slowly lets you stay in tune with your body and recognize when your hunger has been satisfied without going past the point of feeling stuffed. Most people are conditioned to eat until they feel completely full, and then go a few bites beyond that. Instead, slow down and let your brain tell you when you are done. Another important factor is avoiding ultra-processed foods. These contain added sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial preservatives, colorings, and flavorings, all of which interfere with a healthy metabolism. A healthy metabolism is exactly what you need to burn down visceral fat. Ultra-processed foods damage your gut microbiome, which plays a critical role in your metabolism and in keeping inflammation low. When your gut microbiome is damaged, inflammatory levels in your body rise. Beyond that, ultra-processed foods are specifically engineered to make you crave more of them. They are designed so that your brain responds to the taste and flavor in a way that drives you to keep eating. When you overindulge in these foods, you are not only taking in too many calories, but also flooding your system with additives that actively interfere with your body's ability to burn visceral fat. When it comes to what you eat, do not fear your food. You want to lean into finding delicious, healthy foods and eat them at a modest volume. And it is not just what you eat or how you eat that matters. When you eat can also make a significant difference. Here is the science behind that. When you eat, your insulin rises in order to shuttle that energy into your cells. Our metabolism is hardwired so that when insulin is elevated, the body focuses on storing fuel, not burning it. When you stop eating, insulin drops and your metabolism switches gears. It begins burning stored fat, whether that is fat from dinner, from yesterday, or from months ago. This is actually happening while you sleep. That is when your body is able to burn fat most effectively. To take advantage of this, try to give your body as much time as possible to naturally burn fat. If you are sleeping 8 hours, say from 11 at night to 7 in the morning, consider eating dinner at 7 in the evening and putting the dishes away by 8. If you do not eat anything after dinner, you have already gained 3 extra hours of fat burning before you even go to sleep. Then if you wait an extra hour before eating breakfast in the morning, you add another hour on top of that. 8 hours of sleep plus 3 hours the night before plus 1 extra hour in the morning gives you 12 hours, which is half your day spent in a fat-burning state. Now let us talk about specific foods that can help. Foods high in dietary fiber, such as chickpeas, legumes, lentils, and white beans, promote a strong feeling of fullness. A single bean taco at lunch, for example, can lead you to eat less at dinner because beans, with all their dietary fiber, create a satiety effect that works both in the gut and in the brain. As an added benefit, dietary fiber feeds your gut microbiome, which research is increasingly showing to be critically important for longevity in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. Oily fish are well known for their health benefits due to marine omega-3 fatty acids. A study from Iceland explored what effect omega-3 fatty acids have specifically on body fat. The findings were striking. Omega-3 fatty acids activate brown fat, help you lose weight, and burn away visceral fat, shrinking your waist size. The researchers found that eating salmon 3 times a week for 8 weeks can lead to losing up to 15 pounds. A 5-ounce serving of salmon contains approximately 1,565 milligrams of marine omega-3 fatty acids. But here is what is remarkable. The same researchers also studied cod, which is not considered an oily fish. Cod only contains about 284 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids per serving, far less than salmon. Yet people who ate cod 3 times a week lost 10 pounds over 8 weeks. You do not need to eat mackerel or anchovies to get enough omega-3s to fight fat. Something as lean as cod with that relatively modest amount of omega-3s will do the job. To put that into practical terms, you only need to eat 4 medium-sized Gulf shrimp to get as much omega-3s as you get in a serving of cod. You only need 2 oysters. If you prefer mackerel, which is very oily, just 1 forkful gives you the same amount as a serving of cod. And halibut, a very mild whitefish that is not considered oily, only requires half a piece the size of half a deck of cards to match that same cod amount. Coffee is another powerful tool for fighting visceral fat. A study from the Harvard School of Public Health looked at men and women between the ages of 35 and 69 who were overweight and had insulin resistance. Half the group was given 4 cups of coffee made with Robusta beans every day for 6 months, while the other half received a placebo. At the end of the study, the coffee drinkers had lost 4.6 pounds and had measurably less visceral fat. The placebo group, who simply continued eating their normal diet without the coffee, gained 4.4 pounds. The coffee drinkers and the placebo group moved in completely opposite directions. This effect is attributed to the chlorogenic acid, caffeine, and caffeic acid in the coffee. Green tea has also been studied for its effects on visceral fat. Researchers looked at 70 women in a diabetes clinic with metabolic syndrome, meaning they had excess weight, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and a large waist size, all hallmarks of high visceral fat and signs of being on the path toward type 2 diabetes. One group drank 3 cups of green tea daily for 8 weeks, while the other group drank plain warm water as a placebo. At the end of 8 weeks, the tea drinkers had lost 2 pounds and had reduced their waist circumference by nearly an inch, close to 1 belt hole smaller. The researchers confirmed that what was lost was specifically visceral fat. The green tea drinkers also experienced lower systolic blood pressure, which is the top number in a blood pressure reading. This is significant because high blood pressure dramatically increases the risk of stroke, so lowering it through diet has very real protective effects. Apple cider vinegar is another area where the research has been quite revealing. Japanese researchers studied a dose-dependent effect of apple cider vinegar on metabolism, body composition, visceral fat, and inflammatory markers. In one study, participants were given either 1 tablespoon or 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar daily for 1 month, compared to a placebo of plain water. The results showed that any amount of apple cider vinegar reduced waist circumference, decreased body fat, lowered inflammatory markers in the blood, and caused measurable weight loss on the scale. Participants who took 3 tablespoons lost more weight and more body fat than those who took 1 tablespoon. That dose-response relationship is an important indicator that something real is biologically happening. The type of fat lost was specifically visceral fat, the harmful inflammatory kind that is particularly problematic. The active ingredient responsible for these effects is not what comes from the apple. It is the vinegar itself, specifically the acetic acid. Acetic acid is what defines vinegar chemically. What chemists call acetic acid, chefs call vinegar. Acetic acid works by preventing fat cells, known as adipocytes, from expanding. It also impairs the body's ability to create new fat cells. Your body is capable of producing new fat cells from stem cells when you continue to consume more fuel than you need, essentially adding more storage tanks to hold excess energy. Acetic acid blocks both the expansion of existing fat cells and the creation of new ones. This means that apple cider vinegar is beneficial, but so are other vinegars, including white vinegar, red wine vinegar, black vinegar, and fermented vinegars common in Asian cuisines. The key is the acetic acid, which is present in all true vinegars. One practical tip if you want to explore this for yourself, always pick up the bottle and read the label. Make sure what you are buying is genuinely apple cider vinegar, or whichever vinegar you choose, without added ingredients. Many companies add things to vinegars to make them more appealing, and those additives can actually be harmful to your health and interfere with your metabolism. Salad dressings, for example, are made with vinegar and oil, but often contain a long list of additional ingredients that can work against the very benefits you are seeking. Keep it simple, keep it pure, and the vinegar will do what the research shows it can do.